Hello, we're back with Savage Brushstroke, and I'm here with I just put you in as improviser, Kevin Scott. I don't know
Yeah,
what else
yeah. I think
to,
should I?
to
Yes, I'm an improviser.
whatever you want to do.
No, I'm gonna
um,
put you on speakers
okay,
because the
this is
headphones are kind of like I don't know. It's a
okay.
mediated experience. Am
What
I in
I
camera? Can you see me?
so I can see you.
Okay,
what
it's my first time
it's
doing
such
this, so
great.
I'm not sure.
You're
Uh,
doing perfect. This
okay,
is
good.
so interesting because when I first started going to the pit, like 2000, I can't remember if it was 8 or 9, but it was very early. I started going to the pit, right? And I went to see. I think within the first 3 shows I saw at the pit were my buddy's class show because he's the one who
That
introduced
was
me
a
to the
good
pit.
show. I remember that.
A guy named Tom Pitts. And then I think like the second or third show I saw, he's like, dude, you got to come see this show. And it was a Centralia show. And which was like to see, like, that was one of my first pitch shows that I saw. And imagine, like, I like years after that, maybe 1 or 2 times, and then you guys were just gone. And I was like, what happened to this guy? And you guys were doing this camera that was live broadcasting as you were playing. And I remember one of you went into the other person's mouth, like, and you could see it on the screen. Yeah, just like that. And it was so crazy. And I was like, what is this? Like, I had spent like the last couple years doing like short form improv, and then I was just thrown into this netherworld, this wild fantasia, and I was like,
Yeah,
"What is happening?" My mind
yeah.
was so, say, the back of my head blew straight off. You know what I mean? I was just like, so I didn't
That's
know
good to
what was
hear.
going on.
You know,
Yeah, man.
we used to use a lot of video. That was a big thing because we saw it as theater. You know, we were trying to do theater, something
Mm,
theatrical and interesting. And I've always loved film. I consider myself a filmmaker, even though I've only
mm,
made like
mm,
3 movies in my life.
mm.
That's not true. I make a movie a year, usually a short,
Wow.
right? A short, and some of them are, barely qualify as a movie. And I make a bunch just for fun with my daughter. Now we're making movies, but I consider myself a filmmaker, but I mostly do improv, and I'm known for improv.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when we were doing the improv, I wanted to bring my filmmaking to it, and the only way we
Wow.
thought to do it was to bring live cameras. It was also just it's theatrically powerful, and nobody else was doing it, so it's sort of like um, way to brand ourselves as different.
Yeah.
Create a different space. I don't know. It's
What
super
I'm gonna.
good to hear that you thought it was mind blowing because it's so much work to put it in the show. And when you're at a
Mm,
space like the pit where you got 10 minutes before your show and 10 minutes after to do all your set,
yeah.
your strike, video takes half an hour, 40 minutes to set it up, and then you got to test it and everything.
Mm,
And so it eventually made its way out of the show. There's always a camera
right.
in the booth if we need it. We could run up there and do a bit, but we use it less and less now. And it used to be like a central element to the show. You know,
What's ironic is you might be the first filmmaker I've talked to on this show, and I don't think so. Actually, you're not the first filmmaker, but one of the first, and we're talking exclusively about film. And you're barely on camera
oh,
right now.
I'm
You're
like,
like all the way at
oh,
the edge of
so
the frame.
what I see up here is what I see. Like
Right? Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking.
If you're
Okay,
centered, that's
it's
beautiful.
just
If
a
you're
little because
centered, it's
I
perfect.
have a preview. I'm trying to get close to the mic. Trying to make it interesting. This camera, actually, I got this camera that I can move it around where I want
Ah, yes.
to make it interesting.
Yeah, you can do a lot of that. That's great. That's great. You can do that all through the interview if you
Yeah,
want. But I
I'll
just want
try
to
to
make
make it
sure we
interesting for you to
have
prove
some
that
of
I'm a filmmaker.
it.
I just want the sound to be good because you're like a sound guy. So I'm like, I got this microphone here. I'm
That's
like,
perfect.
I'm gonna be talking to Ralph. I gotta get close to my microphone here.
I'm talking straight into my laptop.
I
Like
gotta get
there's,
right on it.
yeah, that's perfect.
I want to be professional.
Yes. Um,
I actually got a light here too. I set up a little light.
yeah, that the colors are gorgeous. This is gonna be by far the most cinematic interview I've done. I mean, I really just it's like just an excuse for me to get FaceTime with people doing
Yes.
this show,
Oh,
but
I totally get it. totally
I
different.
haven't thought at all about the visual aspect, except for I think it's I do. People are like Anya said to me, like, oh, I just listen to podcasts, but I tend to prefer to watch interviews if I can see the people. I'll listen to them.
There's more information. I mean, we're social creatures, and there's so much we get just watching people's expressions and hand gestures. And the podcast is a great experience. I love podcasts, but it's a different experience than actually being with the person. I mean,
oh yeah,
watching
sure.
somebody on video is different too, but it's a little closer.
Yeah, you definitely get something from that. There's a great meme that I saw. It was just a picture, and it was like me when I listen to podcasts, and it's a kid eating cereal, and he's looking at like a cereal box of two other kids laughing and playing on the cereal box, and he's just eating the cereal and laughing, and like that's what it feels like. It's like these are my friends. I download this so you can be my hours.
Totally.
So. I guess that's enough context. Is that you're a filmmaker and part of Centralia, which I often call, and I believe it, the greatest improv team in the world.
We probably are. I mean,
with you and Matt Higgins and Jay Roderick, who is my level 1 teacher at the Pit, and Patrick McCartney, bless you. So you guys play regularly, or you were before the quarantine, before times changed. We're playing at the People's Improv Theater. I guess let's just jump into the pieces that you chose. I'm super curious. So let's start with the piece from like the famous artist, if you.
Well, it was tough because I'm going to put this camera. I'm mounting it here so I don't have to hold it.
Okay.
It was tough because you're like choose two things: a famous artist and a not famous artist that you know.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm like, I take this stuff seriously, right?
Yeah.
Facebook, I'm like, okay. There's so many things that influence me, and then I said that to you in a chat. I was like, I can't pick. There's 1,000 artists. I would never be able to pick. An influence.
Yeah.
And then you said what you're thinking about right now, today, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and I've been thinking a lot about what everyone's thinking about, which is what we're living through right now, right? This crazy, unique experience that we're all having. We're all having the same experience, but it's different for all of us, right? We're all processing it differently at different times. I'm watching a lot of people just go crazy online, like performing and clowning and singing songs. And it's fascinating because I'm not necessarily seeing their performances and their art, which is great, but I also have Netflix and Hulu, which is very professional. This is sort of raw, and it's emotional, and it's personal, and it's like a window into people's process of how they're getting through this. Or not get through it. Some people are like, I'm keeping as far away as possible and I'll get through it later. So, I'm thinking about that. So I'm thinking about like, what is the role of art, and what's the kind of art I'm going to want or need when this is over to help me process it. And I was reminded of, because this is very similar to 9/11. Right. I don't remember 9/11. It was in the news.
I wasn't in New York, but
probably heard of it. Where were you on 9/11?
I was, my dad was here. I'm from here. I went to high school in Florida. So I was in Port Charlotte, Florida. I was in English or history, some class, and somebody was just like, turn the TV, and then life was never the same after that. Yeah.
I was here in New York, like Centralia was, we were going for it. We were trying to be a big deal in the city. We'd got some press, and we had a producer, and it was going to happen. And our show was to open the Friday after September 11th. And it was
called. It's the same thing happened to the guy from Kids in the Hall.
Yeah. His posters were all over. Scott Thompson.
Oh, wow.
All over the city at that time. And we were,
wow.
We were going to go for it. We were having it. It was like our preview. It was like a soft opening. We were changing the concept of the show to see what worked. And it was, at that time, it was called The Safety Show. And we were going to teach people the instructions on what to do in case of an emergency and how to evacuate the theater. And then, of course, we're like, well, we can't do that show. We're not going to do that show. We had this guy, Gary Goodrow, who was in the Lemming show on Broadway in the 60s, and he was with the committee. He was like one of the first people to do the Herald. To be like this guy on video, this big screen, the safety guy that taught these movements on how to like duck and cover. And the idea was we were going to play them back, and it was going to be like the whole audience would be doing a dance together, sort of our version of the safety dance.
Yes.
And then evacuate the theater. At the end of the show, we were going to evacuate the theater. This is crazy. This we thought this would be hilarious. And then, of course, 9/11 happens, and we're like, well, we're not doing that show. And then the city shut down for a while, right? And the first thing back, The Onion came back pretty quick, and then Saturday Night Live came back, and then Spike Lee started shooting a movie called The 25th Hour. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, yes.
And anyway, that's the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is that movie. And in particular, I don't know if you remember that movie, if you saw it.
I think I saw it once or twice around that time in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, it's that time. It better than any other movie captures the feeling of New York, specifically New York, not America.
The only thing I remember from that movie is Bensonhurst. I say that all the time.
Yeah. That the monologue he gives, that's the thing everyone remembers, right? Ed Norton gives a monologue. He sees the words F you, not F, but the actual word. I'm saying F because kids might be watching.
Yeah. Sure.
And he's like, F you. And then he gives this whole list, and he goes through the whole 5 boroughs of the different people you see in New York, Korean deli owners, Sikh cab drivers, Harlem basketball players that always double dribble. And hilarious. And he's like, F you to all these guys, but it's a love letter, and he just loves them. And it's very Spike Lee, it's highly cinematic, like he's one of those filmmakers who uses cinema, right? What he's doing is a cinematic experience. It's not a play. There's a lot of music and there's acting, and it's like the German expressionists used to talk about cinema as the ultimate art form because it combined all other art forms together, right? There's set painting, there's acting, there's directing, there's music. It's all in there. And the camera can move where it can't in theater. And
God, you just I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
Hit something for me that I've never thought about, which is like even like after Robin Williams, my and he's in this group too. But after Robin Williams, my favorite actor of all time is Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas. Many things, but one of the things he's said is like, no, I'm not going to just do naturalism and realism just because that's what we all do. There's a lot of choices to make, and I'm going to choose the one that's best for this moment, not just the one that's the most real.
Artistic journey that a lot of actors don't have the courage to go on.
Oh, I love him.
Willing to risk embarrassment and being a fool, which you have to if you're gonna go somewhere new.
Yes, but I never realized that there are many filmmakers who do that same thing, who are like, I am not just gonna do this thing that feels real and gritty or whatever it is. I am gonna use what cinema is. I mean, that's why we love Scorsese. It's why we love Tarantino. It's why we love Spike Lee. You're making me also think of, I don't know if you saw, I don't remember, I think it's like You Were Never Really Here or something like that.
Oh my God, Lynn Ramsey.
Oh!
She's a genius. She's a genius. She's
good.
One of the top. There's maybe 5 geniuses in the history of cinema. She's one of them. Just absolute brilliance. She has to be making movies. Like, not everyone has to make movies.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people that make these, I don't want to sound like Scorsese, but entertainment, popcorn movies, they don't have to make movies. They can make amusement park rides. They can write comic books. There's a lot they can do. Lynn Ramsey has to make movies.
Okay, that's the first time.
He is one of these people too for me.
Yes.
That, like, he's born to do this. He takes risks that people, they're everyone's like, how do you make a movie? What are the rules? You can just see it. He doesn't care. He's making his own rules as he goes, and he breaks all the cinematic rules. I'm sure sound mixers are like, "What are you doing?" Because the music is as super loud, and the dialogue is super loud, and it's cacophonous, you know. And it's absolutely brilliant because it's a cinematic experience. It's meant to hit you, like Freud talks about. He called it polymorphous perversion, right? He says it's something that happens to you when you listen to a great piece of music. I think he was talking about music, but I think about it to all great art, that you are changed by the experience, but not cognitively. You don't understand how you're changed. You just feel changed by the experience. And Spike Lee's one of these guys who understands that this is what cinema can do, right? Same way an orchestra can do it. You leave, or the opera, like those people that cry at the opera and they don't even know why they're crying. They're like, the woman hit a note. It was a high C. She's sad. I mean, we're just changed by it. And his stuff hits me. But particularly this movie at that time was a raw emotional time, which I'm not there yet with this. This Corona lockdown is a 9/11 in slow motion. You know, that day, it happened that day, right? And then we started processing it almost immediately, right? This is happening every night at 7:00. We're banging pots and pans and applauding out the window for our heroes, you know. And I'm like, how long is this going to go on? And just not being able to touch anything, you know, outside in the world. Like, how long is that going to go on? Like 9/11, you couldn't breathe the air downtown, but that was, you know, a month at most. But most of it was over almost instantly, you know. Once they stopped replaying the stuff on TV every night, it was like, okay, back to our regular lives. This is going to take a long time. Am I making any sense at all?
You're absolutely making a lot of sense, and you're beautifully lit while you're doing it.
Oh, thank you. I can change the lighting.
No, this is terrific. Yeah. Wow.
I have to. The cinematographer, I can't remember his name. I can look it up. The cinematographer on 25th Hour is a guy. He did Amoros Perros. He worked with Inarritu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. It's not Chivo. I mean, you heard this guy Chivo.
Yeah, he did Birdman.
Not Chivo. It's the other guy.
Yeah.
He did Amoros Perros and Babel and a bunch of these other ones. And he's one of these guys, also fearless. But like in 25th Hour, there's scenes that are like all red or all blue. It's like there's no other color when they're in the club, all blue.
Yeah.
Anyway, not that I lit this intentionally to mirror that, but
you're making me want to ask another, which is like, did you find once you guys had to let go for practical reasons of like this sort of a cinematic part of doing the Centralia show, did you find then that did you find or notice where it was showing up in other aspects of the show? Or do you just make your peace with the fact that that's not part of our show anymore?
I think we sort of made our peace with it. You know, he was also my thing, and the dynamics of the group is like, I'm not supposed to be the director or the producer, but I insist on being the director and the producer.
Yeah.
And not always. You know, we switch. You know, like Higgins is. You know, we never really defined our roles, but I'm sort of the guy who comes at it from the outside. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the experience we're giving the audience, especially when we're at a place like the Pit where people see a lot of improv? How is our show different? How are we not a casual night of theater like all other improv? You know, we always have original music playing. We don't play pop hits. It's stuff we create. We always have video playing when the audience comes in. We try to create. We used to fill the room with smoke. You know, we try to create a unique space so it starts theatrically before the show begins. Because why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really believe the show begins the moment they encounter either the advertising or a friend tells them about the show.
Whoa!
The conversation's already begun, right? So we have to control that. Because we have to give them something that represents us, you know.
Yes.
Plus, there's an opportunity for a little art there. You know, I love designing our flyers and our posters. Like that's part of the show. That's part of the overall experience. And so that I take care of all that stuff. And then Matt, sort of like the improv guy, like He's like moment to moment, look at each other, yes, and remember to breathe, all that stuff, which I'm an instinctive player. I don't think about that stuff so much. I think about it a lot after the show. Sort of like what went wrong, what didn't. And as a teacher, I'm very mechanical. I'm always about scene structure. This is how you structure a scene. This is how you tell a joke. This is how you hit the punchline. And here's a tag on the joke and all that stuff. How do you set yourself up for a joke you're going to pay off 20 minutes later? Like, I love that. The mechanical stuff. And Higgins is more like the breathing, living part of it, So I think we're a good mix that way.
Yes. Yeah.
I think every improviser, you have to take one of three roles, if not all three. You have to be the writer, you have to be the actor, and you have to be the director. And all great ensembles have at least one person who's strong in each of those. That makes sense. I don't know if I'm the writer. Sometimes I'm the writer, sometimes I'm the director, sometimes I'm the actor, and that's on stage and off, by the way. Like in a set, you have to like take off your actor hat and be the writer and say, okay, this scene needs X and throw that in, right? Or as the director, you're like, this is getting slow. We need to pick up the pace. The next scene's going to be gangbusters. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's also fascinating.
To do with Spike Lee's 25th Hour, but
I think it has a lot to do with it. I mean, just in these roles of how this thing is constructed, because it's almost, I don't know the inner workings, but you guys are also just like communicating all this stuff like telepathically, and yeah, it is.
Well, we just know each other. We know what is going to make the other person laugh or excite them or knock them off balance. It just comes from time of playing together, and having great shows in the past convinces you can do a great show tonight.
Oh, that's,
so you'd be like, it'll happen,
and you could just relax into it, which is probably the best for everything.
Totally.
That is what it's interesting to me how you guys seem, you were almost, tell me if this resonates with you. It's almost as though Centralia was trained in another time to come to this time that you're more meant for, just because I feel like what you're describing is this idea. I don't even know if I came up with it, if I'm using the term correctly, but this idea of world building that feels very important to me, especially feels very relevant to music right now, which is like, I heard that there's an artist named Michelle Ndegeocello, neo soul artist who I think she blew up kind of in the 90s in the neo soul movement, and I've heard her sort of on a podcast kind of lamenting that the record label used to take care of the marketing and blah blah, and now you've got to be on social media, you've got to have this visual presence, all these other things that she kind of laments needing to do because she wants to invest herself so fully in the music. But what you're describing to me is what I think is really possible now, which is this idea of world building, that the album cover is also the album. The music video is also the album. The outfits that I'm wearing this entire cycle is also the album. Everything is also, the interviews that I'm doing are also the album. And
the great pop artists have always understood that the music is only the way to monetize the product. The product is everything. Like Elvis was the product. His songs were not great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But people want to see Elvis because it's Elvis, or Michael Jackson or any of the great pop artists, Madonna. It's all part of it. Lady Gaga, right? Current one carrying that mantle, that she gets that it's all the thing. And music is just the thing that people pay for to keep that train going, or the live performance. So is a way to make it, not to say cash in, but to afford to keep doing it. That pays the bills. The photographs in the magazine don't pay the bills. It pays the photographer's bills, the magazine's bills. But you get what I'm saying. But this goes back to, this is one reason why, like Spike Lee, not so much the 25th Hour, but his early films were like important, is what you're talking about, is like indie music, like punk rock, where
Mm-hmm.
people had to do everything themselves, the DIY movement. And the idea is like, I'm just going to do it. Early hip hop, same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The labels aren't asking for us. So we're going to be our own label, right? We can't afford a graphic designer. We're going to be our own graphic designer, right? I got a
Mm-hmm.
buddy who owns a camera. He's going to be our photographer. We're going to make our own music videos. And that was for people that didn't have any other options, partially because they were doing something new that was untested and the money people didn't know what it was, right? It's considered dissent until they can figure out how to commodify it later, right? But now it's all different. So everyone has to be punk rock, right? And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one reason why I remember when She's Got a Habit came out, and that was around the same time as like Stranger Than Paradise, the Jim Jarmusch movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen it, but I
And
know. Yeah.
Clerks was not too far around that. There was these movies
Mm.
that like these people were making on their own for $1,000. El Mariachi's another one that came a little bit
Mm-hmm.
later.
Robert Rodriguez. Yeah.
They were just making movies because they had to make movies. And as someone who had zero access to anything, no equipment, right? Didn't no film school education or anything, couldn't afford it, these people like spoke to me, the way everyone finds their heroes, that pave the way for you. Those people did for me, and especially because all those ones, they were making unique movies that were clearly personal, right? They were saying, this is how I see the world. Do you see it too? And as a kid from the suburbs of Philadelphia, which is nowheresville, man, to be able to go to the cinema, I'd have to go down to Philadelphia, right? I'd have to take the train into Philly to the little art cinema, the Ritz, it was called, and watch these movies and to see how other people lived. It was amazing to me to see, even though a lot of these movies are in black and white, these colorful lives, that people were living. It was so exciting. And to know that people made them, that somebody sat around and had an idea and then got their friends together and said, let's go make this thing. I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do with my life. I want to find my group of people and we're going to make things together that show our view of the world. If that makes sense.
That's so interesting because that is, wow. That's, among all the other things you do, which I've seen some of your films and I love them, but that's also what Centralia is. Like, you guys are not only improvisers, but you, like, more than most of the team, maybe more than any other team, like, create this world and pull us into it with all these stories you guys are constantly telling about somebody looking for a father or losing their father or whatever it is. Those themes that you guys constantly.
None of us have a father. So that's what it's all about. Well, Pat does. Pat's dad is still with us, but Jay and I both lost our fathers pretty young, and Matt lost his father when he was probably in his 20s, I think.
But that and just all the other themes that you guys are constantly coming up with from 1,000 different angles that you're hitting these same themes, but you're doing just that. You like make these movies, which I love film, but I hate this idea of. I'm actually opposite, and probably Centralia is the only people who can convince me otherwise. I hate to see video in a play because I hate this idea that somehow. I'm like, am I going to see a movie or am I going to see a play? But that's my own bias.
It's on trend right now on Broadway. Like the cameras are in there. You can't get rid of them.
Yeah, for sure. But still, like, you guys are doing that thing and creating this. But at the same token,
tried to make movies. I don't know if you ever saw Neutrino. Did you ever see that group?
I did. Of course, it's a legend in improv circles, but I never saw them.
They made movies live. And they would like run out on the street. It was based on a herald. It was a herald structure, and they would go out and shoot, the first part of movie 1, first part of movie 2, first part of movie 3, and then run those tapes back into the theater and play it in the theater. So it wasn't a theatrical experience as much as it was a cinematic experience. But we were, and it's very impressive. And they made some great stuff. It's very funny. And it was always exciting, the people running around, bringing the tapes in, and you're like, what are we going to see now? It was and great people in that group. Yeah. But we always thought of video. We were like, well, just go make a movie. We were like,
Yeah.
how can we use it theatrically? How can
And
it be like lighting or set or,
hmm hmm
because we couldn't build a set for improv. We had to be on whatever stage we were on. We couldn't control it because unless we're renting the space a whole week, 24 hours a day, we couldn't build a set. So this was a way for us to sort of add those theatrical elements, other than like actors cubes, or sometimes we'd bring in large sheets of paper, or for a long time we were rearranging the seats. Like we would perform where the audience normally would, and all the seats were on stage. Or
yes, I was at one of those shows where it was like on the side, it was like an aisle.
Yeah, we loved that. We just loved the audience looking at each other with us in between, so they would see the real them, because we were like, it's improv, right? It's only going to happen once. It's going to happen right now. And the people in this room are the only people that are going to have this experience. So why pretend it's anything other than that? Let's run at that. So they see each other. So they are looking at each other like, we're here now. I'm with you, you with me. And then we were in the middle, hopefully facilitating some experience. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I'm going to say, let's jump into the piece from up here now and see where that takes us.
Because I could talk more. I don't think I can talk about it. Maybe to culminate why I've been thinking about it lately, because it's about New York.
Please.
But it's also it's clearly meant to heal and try to understand and process something we were all going through as a city. And Spike Lee is one of like 3 filmmakers that are allowed to do that, besides like Woody Allen. Can't say that name.
Yeah.
And Marty Scorsese, they're like, these are the guys that tell the New York stories, and cinematic. There's plenty of writers out there. And so they're sort of saying like, this is New York right now. This is it. And they captured it. It's a great movie. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it. And the guy he's perfection. He's perfection in this movie. And it's heartbreaking, but it's also all 5 boroughs are in it, and it's all in one day, and you see so much of New York. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about like, what kind of art do I want to make when this is over? And that's one of the things I'm thinking about, and I also like to think I'm a New Yorker, even though I'm not from here. I've been here, long enough that I have what's like immigrant status.
Yeah, sure. And I think, I mean, at least in hip hop, I don't know. I always feel like Jersey and Philadelphia, it's like, I mean, you might as well.
We're the 6th borough. Philly was the 6th borough.
Yeah.
Right? The younger sibling with a chip on their shoulder about their bigger sibling who gets to do all the cool stuff.
I totally get that, and I think at least from a hip hop point of view, it's respected as such for sure. So yeah, let's go into the piece from up here. Maybe it'll tie back in to the.
Yeah, I think so. This was tricky too, because there's so many different pieces, and I know you through improv, and I'm mostly known as an improv guy. So I was like, I picked an improv moment, which is something that only the few people in the audience would know about. And this goes back to Chicago in the 90s.
Wow.
Which Chicago in the 90s, certainly in terms of like indie rock and theater, was Paris in the 20s, or the closest that the United States would have to it. It was an incredible time with a lot of exciting energy and stuff coming out. Anyway, I was in this improv group. We were called Bang Bang. And we would perform at a coffee house. When we weren't at a theater, we had a regular standing gig at a coffee house Wednesday night after an open mic poetry, which a lot of college kids, trying to figure themselves out, reading their poetry. But it was a very cool scene because, it was a safe space and everybody was being honest about their feelings. And then we would come on and do our improv.
Yeah.
But we were trying to do something. The precursor of Centralia was Burn Manhattan. And the precursor of Burn Manhattan was Chicago's Bang Bang.
Okay.
In terms of trying to, I don't want to sound pretentious, but, elevate improv to an art form, which other people were also trying to do at the same time. We weren't exclusive in that. And we were trying to.
Can I ask why? I don't feel like there's that kind of fervor to try to do that in New York? Why don't you think? Because it's hot here, but we don't. I don't think we have that.
People are pulled in so many directions, and people come to New York to make it.
Mm.
In Chicago, people go to make art. You know, some people make it out of Chicago, and some people get it on their resume and then try to go to New York. It's just different. It's different. And New York used to have that scene years ago. There was storefront theaters everywhere where people were doing crazy stuff, you know. But this was the 80s, and it started to fade in the 90s, and it's not here anymore. That theater you loved, where people were doing crazy shows where the costumes were made out of trash bags, that's now Dwayne Reed.
Yes, that's so, and I don't want to disparage. I mean, my whole training is basically New York long form improv, which I think has its own kind of pop and vitality and all that. But like, there's definitely the further we get, you know, Chicago improv for the most part germinates what is New York improv, and the further we get from that, the less I see that kind of like.
No one's doing improv exclusively here as an art form. They are trying to be funnier. They're trying to get a job on TV. You know, it's sad to say, you know, I don't. People love it. There's community. People find each other. I mean, that's going to happen anyway with improv. But the loftiest goal is fame and fortune, and everything comes down from that. You know, it isn't to be a legendary improviser that nobody knows about except other improvisers.
Right.
It's I'm on a TV show and you recognize my face because I hosted the Golden Globes. And that's very powerful, you know. It's a very powerful draw for people to be around that. It isn't there's art involved, and there are incredibly talented people, and they certainly have skills, but they're not, the goal is not at its heart artistic. And there's also a fear. Again, you're talking about Nicolas Cage, right? A guy who has no fear whatsoever, right? To go full on kabuki with his performances.
Yes, yeah. He'll call it that.
Eyes in New York that people, they don't have the opportunity or the freedom to do that for fear of failure, right? And some of the theaters, they provide the space, the midnight shows, the crazy shows, but those are the, you know, outrage shows. Those are the, you know, crazy weird, he took his pants off shows, you know, which there's probably less of now.
Yeah.
Hashtag time's up.
Yeah.
You know, hashtag safe space.
Me up times 2.
Yeah, but even in those shows, you know, the goal it was this isn't our real show. This is our F around show. You know what I mean? It wasn't, this is my art. This is me blowing off steam and doing something crazy.
Yes.
Because then you can excuse it. It's the but I was drunk excuse. But I was drunk. People drink so they can then have the excuse later, I was drunk.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say those things. I was drunk. You got drunk so you could say those things so they can walk away from them later. Right? And people provide those things for themselves so they can say, I didn't really want to be emotional. I didn't really want to risk saying something dangerous or provocative or cross a line, right? I want to, you know, improv has just enough danger around it that people think it's dangerous, right? But the pervasive schools are, here's how you do it.
Yeah.
Step 1, step 2, step 3. There's no danger in that. There's no danger in teaching people how to paint by numbers.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. And like,
back to Spike Lee.
Yeah.
In the 25th hour, every time someone embraces somebody, it's jump cuts, which every film teacher would say, why? Get rid of the jump cuts. Get rid of the jump cuts. But every single time there's a hug, it's 1, 2, 3, the same thing from 3 different angles. It's insane. It's insane. And only some guy who's like, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about match cutting.
Right.
It's brilliant. You know, I'm giving all the credit to Spike. There was editors, there were cinematographers. There was it was written by one of the guys who did Game of Thrones.
Right.
Game of Thrones guys. So a lot of people were involved, but as the director,
Yeah, he's
he would
leading
have
the
said
ship.
no.
But so
But
this
I'm pretty
this
sure that a
show,
lot of that stuff was his ideas. At least he encouraged and created a space where people could take some real risks.
yeah. I always wonder about that too. Like if I say Spike Lee, I'm not. It's not. To me, it's just like he's just a masthead for like the
But
group he has assembled.
The director won't let something pass that they don't approve, right?
Yeah.
And they encourage people to experiment and create. The only guy who you can say makes the movies themselves is Steven Soderbergh, and Robert Rodriguez is the other one who runs the camera, cuts it, and there's tons of other people doing it now. I say my references stopped at around 2001, 2002. Apologize.
But so back to this moment in the show that you were.
So I didn't even describe the moment yet, but I think about this moment all the time. There was a guy in a group, his name is Tracy Letts, who went on to, he's won the Pulitzer, the Tonys,
August Osage
County, the Minutes, which should be coming to Broadway if ever Broadway returns. He's a writer, actor, brilliant guy. So this show used to be, because we were following these poets, there was a certain poetic element of it, in that we had space to bare your soul at any given time. Like if someone was going through something, we would just get up and talk about it. Personal stuff, is about just sort of exposing who we are as we tried to figure this thing out, whatever it was we were doing. We didn't call it improv, we called it spontaneous theater. And every show was completely different. Some nights would be like one play, which now you would call a mono scene. We didn't have a word for it. Sometimes we would do like almost a short form show with every, different silly games. And then some shows were just monologues, and we planned none of it. It was literally just, we got up and like, whatever the first thing happened, that's what the show is. And it was Chicago in the 90s. It was very grunge time. We all wore cut off jeans and whatever. There's some pictures on my Facebook page of these times. Anyway, there was one monologue in particular, and I don't remember what preceded it or what came after it, but Tracy Letts got up and talked about this moment. His car broke down. None of us ever had any money. We were all poor. And Chicago's a car town, even though there's public transportation. It's a pretty big town. And people had to have cars. I didn't. I had friends who had cars. And he had this terrible car. Everyone's car was always breaking down. It was always cold too. So I don't know if cold affects how cars work, but it always felt like it's January and it's dark and the car isn't working. It
sounds horrible, and I'm so envious of it. I'm like, I wish I was there.
Great times. Great time. Was
Del still alive at this time, or had he already passed?
Who?
Was Del Close still alive at this time, or had he already passed?
Still alive. He was still alive. He died when I was in New York.
Okay.
He died, and Martin DeMatt died around the same time, and
I'm so jealous.
Long after.
Okay.
But Del was he was around. He was around, but we weren't so
influenced. He's doing the monologue.
Del.
Sure.
Because the Herald were like, it's such a restrictive structure. Why are they doing a structure?
Right.
We shall improvise our own structure. We didn't even talk in those terms. We're like, we're just going to improvise a play, man. Whatever form it took. And some of us, like I came up, I learned short form first, and then I did the Second City stuff and learned scene work, scene structure. And then other people had no improv experience, like Michael Shannon. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a actor. He was in the group too. And Greg Kotis was with us for a while. He wrote Urinetown and some other stuff. And
yes, I met him at the Pit. Yeah.
So and people would pass through, like great Chicago actors at that time would just sort of sit in with us for a session, a season. And I'm trying to get now back to the story because I want to tell the story. They're all good people. They're all really good people, theatrical people. Some knew how to improvise and some didn't, was my point. And some were actors, and we're all trying to figure out how to combine what we know together. And we would take turns directing and just give notes to each other after the show. It was like a recipe for chaos.
Right.
There were fist fights in rehearsal. And we performed inches away from a plate glass window, and I'm surprised none of us ever were thrown through it because it was crazy. So you don't wish you were there.
Okay.
So this one monologue in particular was his car broke down. Letz's car broke down. This is true. He's telling us a true story. And these two guys came over who were clearly homeless guys who tried to help him with the car. And Letz was nice at first. He's like, I can throw these guys a couple of bucks. I don't have any money, but clearly I have more than they do. And we'll see if they can fix the car. And the car isn't working, right? They can't figure it out. They don't have the right tools, and they're just trying to figure it out. And Let's like, forget about it. I'm going to call a tow truck. And it goes on back and forth like this for a while until one of the guys that's helping is in tears. And he's saying, I used to build these cars. I worked on the line in Detroit. I can fix this car. I maybe made this car. And when Letz was telling the story, like he's trembling and like tears are welling up in his eyes as he's talking about this guy. And I just never forgot this moment. Like, there's so many things I've pulled out from it over the years. Just sort of the confidence to be raw, right? To just, I'm going to tell a story that shook me. I'm going to tell you the story. But also his empathy and compassion for this guy and his struggle and understanding we're all the same, you know. We have good times, we have bad times, and we're here to help each other. And this guy had to help Letz for himself. You know what I mean? He was a homeless guy who had nothing, and he needed that moment of dignity. He needed to accomplish something. And also he had a connection with the cars, you know what I mean? And his past, it was a personal thing he was going through. And Let's communicated that so clearly and with such compassion. All right. One reason I was shook, and I'm still shook by this, is I was the funny guy in the group. Right? I was the reliable entertainer. I could be Billy Crystal if I needed to, right?
Okay.
And put on a little razzmatazz showbiz. And I always felt like I had to do that. I felt like the audience needs to be taken care of here. They came out to be entertained, right? And I saw the audience was not only wrapped with attention, but moved, and they got it too, you know. And maybe it was a bit of that overtonal montage where like they're just changed and they don't know why because someone is crying in front of them, you know. And maybe some of them figured, you know, understood the story on a deeper level, and I was able to experience it not as a person, you know, not as the actor or the writer or the director, but as an audience member, and be moved by it and understood the power of theater, not on a Broadway stage, you know, not with all the money and the production values, which I, like many people who moved to Chicago, was only there to get to that other place. I realized I was in that place. We were doing the work, right? Even though there was only 40 or 50 people in the house that night, we were changed by the experience, right? And that's what theater can do. That's what film can do. That's what music does, especially when it's in public, right? We have a shared communal experience that leaves us altered, leaves us different people, transformed for the better, right? That's our job as artists. And it was also personal, and it was great. And he won a Tony as Best Actor. So, you know, the 19-year-old improvisational version of him was on his way to that place. I'm very thankful that I had that experience. I'm so glad I was in Chicago at that time, being around such crazy artists, going full on Nicolas Cage to try and come up with something, you know. Anyway, that's the piece that I think about a lot, you know. And particularly lately when I'm thinking about what I want to talk about, you know, I think a lot about, like, I'm still a careerist. Zero career. Zero. I've never had like a day job for more than 6 months or something, you know, like the closest I got to a day job was I was a graphic designer for a while. I convinced somebody that I knew the Adobe suite. And so I had a job for a little while. But other than that, every job I have is in theater some way or another, either as a theater tech or a performer or writer or what have you. So I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky. That said, you know, I have friends who host the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why aren't I there? You know, why can't I be a bigger sandbox? Why can't I be like at a position where I can just make whatever I want to make with the people I want to make it with when I want to make it. Now, no one has that. Nobody has that, right? Spike Lee in the 25th Hour. I'm sure there's tons of headache. I mean, every filmmaker, Scorsese I'm sure J.J. Abrams hates the last 3 years of his life trying to make a Star Wars.
Yeah.
He tried to make a effing Star Wars. And I'm sure it was heck for him. An unbearable amount of pressure that very few of us could take. Still, I want to be there. You know what I mean? I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to be there. I want to be in the game. But I think of that story in Let's, and that moment, it's one of the most powerful theatrical moments of my life. And it cost 99 cents for the audience to be there. And it cost nothing for us to put the show on. So I have to remind myself of that time and time again as I get older, which happens to us all. But as years go by and I'm like, what am I doing now? Well, I'm not doing enough. I'm in quarantine. I have to write King Lear. Right? We're all told we got to write King Lear while we're in quarantine. Like, do I?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to write King Lear when there was no pressure on me. And now I'm going to write it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for Shakespeare, he didn't know King Lear would be performed 500 years after he wrote it.
Yeah.
He was writing it for the King's Men. Like, we're just going to write a play and put on a play. I got this idea, right? This guy's going crazy and it's the end of the world and his daughters are nuts. You want to do it? And I'm sure if he took that to a writing teacher, they'd be like, why is the fool only in the first half of the play? You don't pay off.
Can we make it more likable? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's a funny thing of like, because I know that to me, it's always a fight with Spike Lee. Like, everyone says to do the right thing. I don't know why Malcolm X doesn't get the credit it deserves. Really, I feel like his most celebrated film, to me, my favorite is either Malcolm X or He Got Game. I love He Got Game. But like, some people say 25th Hour is his King Lear. Who knows if he knew that at the time he was making it?
Wow.
Or if he...
I never heard that before.
And
it's about the end of the world. I mean, it's completely serendipitous. They were working on that movie before 9/11. 9/11 happens, and they're like, we're going to fold it into it. And it just so happens to be a perfect fit. It's about the end of the world. It is about saying goodbye to all that you love and all that you hate and everything in your life. There's a huge what if at the end of the movie. Like, I don't remember, but like his dad is like, you don't have to go to prison. You could take off and live in Texas. And there's this whole long monologue. It's very Shakespearean. It's Brian Cox, right? Talk about Shakespearean. This whole monologue about what your alternate life could be, right? And we see the whole thing. It's all visualized and it's perfect. And it cuts right back to all those people he was telling to F off in the earlier monologue as he's driving through New York City. We see the same actors playing the same characters as he passes. But it's absolutely, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. But what about there's that?
Such a good movie.
Yes, it's the greatest.
It's probably not my favorite Spike Lee because you can never ignore overtonal montage, which is like your personal connection to it. And I have personal connection to other movies more so. But that it's just a great movie for these times.
Yes, and I mean I hear people even before these times to talk about the movie with such huge reverence, and I've seen it probably at least twice, I think. But between that and this monologue that Greg Codas did and everything he's gone on to do, and to think about even the show I described to you, the Centralia show that I saw, and the shows you guys continue to do. Do you ever think about this sense that maybe it is exactly as you're describing, that like you've already written your King Lear and you don't even know it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I wasn't so neurotic, I would be sitting pretty. I'd be like, guys, I've done it. Everyone's chasing the perfect improv show. I've done it 12 times. Out of thousands. Don't get me wrong. Out of thousands. There's been a dozen I can walk away and be like, that's very hard to do what we just did. And we did it without breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
And we've entertained, there's one of my favorite things that happens in my life now that I'm older is when people come up to me, after a show most often, but sometimes on the street, and they're like, I saw you do a show, The House of Candles, 1997. You played a talking llama named Kyle. My wife and I talk about that all the time. I pretend to be Kyle walking around the house.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
I don't remember a thing you're saying. I don't
Come
remember
on.
what's happening, but I know that that's an important something for you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no greater thrill as an artist performer than having affected people. And I don't think I've affected too many. Some people have changed their lives because they've encountered me and my work, only in that they took an improv class. That's the biggest change. And for some people, that is they get a new group of friends and a new social life and new hours that they, stay out late or whatever. I don't think I've changed anyone politically, sexually, morally, religiously. I don't think any big changes. But there's jokes that people recall and recount, and it brings joy to their life years later. There's people that their first dates were at our show and now they have kids. There are people that met and fell in love at our shows, or their first date was at one of our shows and it was a good enough of an evening that they decided to keep dating. And the last show we did, which may be the last show we do ever, I don't know if this is ever going to end, the Corona thing, but it was sold out show, and we had to add seats. And for someone who's been doing this as long as I have, like, there's no greater thrill to still be something that people are willing to leave their house and go and do. As part of a whole night out. Maybe it's the only thing they did that night. Our audience is aging as we are, so I doubt they go out after our show. There's no greater thrill to know that we're important enough on that night for people to make the effort and pay the $10 or whatever it is. We might be 15. I think we're 15. We might be $15. Big ticket, right?
Yeah, hot ticket.
I know. My wife and I, without hesitation, will drop a couple $100 on Broadway tickets. Without hesitation.
I have said and I love theater and I love plays, but I have been saying for years, and I'm sure it's not a novel thought, but I've been saying for years that, like, what is this? Do people not know that on any given night there is a show happening either for free or for $5 or for $15 that is as good as any play you're going to see?
Yeah.
Because of improv.
Yeah.
That show exists.
Yeah.
And that show did not exist. They were rehearsing for 3 months. That show did not exist 12 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's magical.
It's magical. It's magical. I'm addicted to it.
Same. And addicted seems like a word that's even maybe too low for it.
It's because a lot of things you get addicted to are not good for you.
Yes.
This is like yoga or jogging.
It's like yes. I mean, even more. I consider it, like I've been saying for a long time. Like, I think I started and stick with improv. I continue to because I think it makes me a better actor. And at the core, I would say music and acting, like pure acting, for me, fight side by side. Even though I've not done a movie or a play, and so that's the thing I do the least of. But that's what I consider myself, right? But I really feel like now I like you said, I do improv like people do yoga, and the reason I do that is because to me it's as pure a metaphor as you can get for the creative process. Like that, it is constant. You are playing jazz, you are painting a great oil painting, you are doing all of that whenever you improvise. Gosh, I want to figure out a note to crystallize all this on. I want to.
I see. Oh.
Maybe that's what we should just do. Is just I don't know. I don't even know. If
opera?
Just try to harmonize together. Just try to
people a true operatic experience.
I mean, this would be like a very Bayesian, very Chris Bays exercise to do right now.
Chris Bays.
Yeah, we didn't even. There's too much to talk about.
You talk about influences. Like Bays is one of those guys that, like, he worked with Centralia for, I don't know, 6 months at tops, maybe 6 months. Changed my life. changed my life. You know what I mean, with simple things. It was a very hard work for me, very hard. Because I was like, I don't see the payoff, and he's like, wax on, wax off.
Yes, yes, yeah.
That was very hard. Shira Piven's another one, direct influence on me. She directed Centralia.
I don't know. I mean, I know what family she's from and the theater she's from. I don't know much about her except that she did such a great job with Patrick's show.
Yeah. She's the reason Centralia is Centralia. Like, she gave us our voice and our look and everything. That she's the one that convinced us we were artists. You know, that we weren't just a bunch of comedians trying to be funny.
Is there a difference? It's when you really think about it. That's I guess what I want to end on. You know, you do improv and you're a filmmaker, but you know, we're that's what I consider like improvisers. We're basically hoofers. We're less than hoofers because we're not even really trained in something that you can repeat. You know what I mean? Like a tap dance or something.
Change.
Yeah.
There's no time step.
What would you say is the difference between being just a huckster or a hoofer and an artist, you know, or just a dumb comedian and an artist?
Well, there can be both. I mean, I don't know if I can visualize this. There's a continuum, right, between totally shallow. This is hard to do. Totally shallow, and then like so self-involved, like those. You know, like avant-garde theater people that like, if anyone comes to my show, it's a failure.
Yes,
you know,
I totally get that.
I saw you smiling and you ruined the play.
Yeah.
Remember, go home.
Yeah.
There's a continuum there. You know what I mean? Like, even the hucksters, the people that are there to entertain, there's artistry involved. And the great artists, they're not going to do it in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Somebody has to see it at some point, right? Even if they're not there when they see it, you know. I'm trying to, you know, I'm aware that this is the last question, and I want my response.
You have to be profound right now.
I want it to be profound. That ended well. That was a good ending. The opening was terrible with all that camera work, but by the end, yeah, I can just say that, like, for me personally, I like to swing back and forth, you know, and it's sort of something I got from Bertolt Brecht when I was in Berlin. Let me tell you, Berlin in the 20s.
Oh my God, I didn't realize.
Paris in the 30s. No,
okay.
But what in college, I did a Brecht play and learned about Brecht, and I really got into Brecht and the Germans, the Weimar, you know, and the art that they were doing. Partly because it's like so much of it was in response to the fascists that were rising, you know, and the terrible economic conditions of Germany. And I was just sort of like, God, people could make art in the worst conditions. And it was also incredibly brave and very modern and very new. Anyway, but Brecht talked about, you know, the suspension of disbelief, that the audience never fully believes that they're anywhere other than a theater. So why not use that? But he also understood the power of theatricality, and he would do this push-pull with the audience, you know, using acting and other theatrical things to pull people in and then smack them back to reality and remind them that they're in a world that has problems, you know. Huge influence on me and how I think about theater and all art, you know, which is maybe some reason why I like Spike Lee so much, because he talks about the real world and uses those tricks, those jump cuts. You're taken out of the movie, and you're reminded you're a person, right? In a theater, and then this is real, right? This is what I'm experiencing is real, and the movie is fake, right? Don't think that movie is real. It's not real. It's celluloid. And it's actors and set painters and truck drivers and everyone else working to make this fake thing that you are thinking is real right now. Anyway, so I think about that stuff. But for me, it's not, it's the laughs and the jokes, right? So I try to get some jokes and get them on my side and like, aren't we all having fun? And then I try and switch it into something else. It used to be politics. It used to be monologues. It used to be like, don't you understand? You're sleeping through your lives kind of stuff. When I was a little bit angrier. Now I sort of segue into like, I'm going to be a good actor right now. And I try to use some other emotions other than, you know, cute, coy, entertaining shtick. You know, I try to take it to another level that hopefully makes the audience uncomfortable for a moment, you know, to try and be vulnerable. It's not easy. And I don't necessarily succeed all the time, but that's where I try to go lately. Does that answer the question at all? It's a little of both. It's a
I
little,
mean, yeah, I like that. The idea of this pendulum as, yeah.
it's a little, and most works kind of stay in one place or another. I try to swing back and forth where I can, and put on a good show.
Good show. Good show.
And then, try to be an artist in the middle of a good show.
Yeah. Yeah. Have at least a moment where you were an artist, as opposed to trying to make.
So it's just they leave a little bit transformed. They leave a little bit like, I don't know why I'm different now after that, even if they can't articulate it, but like something happened there that wasn't what you get at every improv show. Something happened there that was a little weird, strange, a little nutty, and I'm now somehow different, and maybe it's Kyle the llama, and you're going to be repeating that joke for 20 years with your significant other, or maybe it's just a feeling that you shake off when you get home and you take a shower.
At least it lasted that long.
Why are you showering at 10 o'clock on a Saturday? Maybe you have other issues you need to deal with.
Yeah. This has been, I am now transformed, and this has been excellent. This has been my longest one so far, and I feel like it merited it.
On a personal note, I don't understand why we don't have this conversation every day.
You're
one of my favorite people to talk to because you're not afraid to get deep into it. Like you care about it in a way that I care about it, and that most people are embarrassed to admit they care about it. I love it, and I love you for it.
Oh, well, oh wow. Thank you so much. I love you, and I love everything you do, and I love Centralia, and you guys are just, you are always like a beacon to me of like, fantasia and magic is possible. So I appreciate it so much.
I love the stuff you do. I love it when you put it up. You're fearless about putting stuff up. You're like my Nicolas Cage. You did a whole live concert album in someone's apartment.
Yes, yeah.
That's insane and brilliant.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin Scott. All right. This is Savage Brushstroke. You have a good night. Be safe.
I'll see you when this is all over.
Okay.